What's going on, my friends? Welcome on out to Behind the Energy podcast, where we dive into behind the scenes of DJing, entrepreneurship, and all the excitement in between. We got some friends, some cool people joining us, and a lot of fun stories. So without further ado, let's jump into Behind the Energy podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, party people, listeners, viewers, YouTube squad, not Tommy, because Tommy doesn't listen to the podcast.
I do.
Everyone who's listening, watching, welcome to Behind the Energy podcast. Did you get that?
Behind the energy, not bringing the energy. Just want to clarify that it's behind the energy.
The bringing the energy signs behind us, but the show's bringing the energy. Welcome to. Oh my God! Welcome to the show. Welcome to Behind the Energy podcast. This is episode 35. Actually, Tommy, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Behind the energy.
Thank you.
We're gonna bring it.
We're bringing it. We're taking it back to about 2013 in this podcast.
Yeah.
For the listeners, Tommy has been an OG friend in many ways, shapes, and forms.
10 years, as of 10 years ago.
About 10 years.
10 years ago. We're coming up on 10 years. It's going to be a big deal. Yeah.
I'm going to move this up because I feel like I'm like leaning into it. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to stop rambling. Tommy, welcome to the show. If you were listening, you'd maybe know like the structure, but you weren't. So I'm just going to preview the structure. We're going to introduce how we first met.
Yes.
And how our friendships crossed. And then we're going to talk about your story and what you've been doing in the past 10 years of our friendship. And even I even want to talk a little bit about like you before our friendship, if you will. Tommy is a hustler, a entrepreneur, the dude that gets things done. And there are very few people that I know within my friend group that execute as quick and as well and at as like the level in which you do, Tommy.
You're too nice for that.
I know I tell you this, but like I remind you this, I tell you this all the time, but like what you're doing is incredibly impressive, and I've got a sliver of understanding of like all that you do. So that said, I'm gonna stop rambling. My friends, this is going to be a very unique and fun episode. So get the popcorn, get the drink, the coffee, whatever it is. Nick Nord, we chilling over there.
Get the Bud Light.
There we go. There we go. So Tommy, why you gotta do me like that? I'm gonna switch it over to you. I want to hear from your perspective how we met nearly 10 years ago.
10 years ago, we're sitting in high school. This is crazy because my audience doesn't know this. My closest friends in LA don't even know this about me. I was rapping with a lot of people that are in this room and had a successful, funny, looking back at it, rap career while I was a freshman in high school. I thought I was the shit. Wasn't shit. And Salt Lake turns out to be a very small town, and Parker had a lot of cool things going on. I think I had a lot of cool things going on, and word was getting out about both of us. And
this is 2013.
2013. Had a lot of funny tweets. I was very, very active on Twitter before I deleted my profile. Had a pretty good following on Twitter. I think it's the biggest social media platform I've ever built up at that time. You know, had some followers, right?
Twitter's a dark place.
Oh, I loved it. Back in the day, it was gold, right?
But no, I agree. Like I too was like very active. It was fun, engaging. You were very connected with your friends there, and you're using it as a platform to also share what you're doing as a hip hop artist, what I'm doing as a DJ. So 2013, we met on Twitter.
It's a different time, and there was a mutual connection who had gone to something that you had DJ'd, had learned of me somehow, whether it was the internet or coming to a show or whatever it was. And it was just, hey, you guys are both dope. You know, your name's out there. You guys need to meet. Parker needs to spin for one of your shows. And somehow that turned into a 10-year, so far, lifelong friendship. So that's where we're at.
And 10 years, a small chapter of what's to come.
Shout out to Cialci for making that tweet. Do you remember
Burke.
that?
Cialci Burke.
He's the one who tweeted
Cialci Burke.
Yeah, I remember the tweet vividly. In fact, I'm gonna have somebody on my payroll try to dig up that tweet.
Oh, that
How great would
that
that
would
be?
be some serious digging.
Yeah.
But if I remember right, we obviously exchanged information, and then I think I came over to your house and we kind of had like a mix sesh, talked, and then started prepping for our first show, right?
I don't know. I can't remember this.
It was your house in Sandy Cottonwood area, right? And I think you had a show coming up, and that's why you were looking for a DJ
Right.
as well. Maybe we had met and talked and kicked it once or twice, and then we started rehearsing, literally like in your garage.
Yeah.
And the first show was Spo's.
Yeah. I was so stoked. He was one of my favorite rappers at the time and still is. Great guy, wonderful person. If he's coming to town wherever I'm at on tour, I'm always going to go see him. Saw him in Austin recently. It was just a blast.
He's still performing.
Yeah, he's going great. And that was just like, so incredible that we were preparing for that and the bootstrapped methods that we had for rehearsing and things like that, just being in the garage and pissing the neighbors off and blaring loud music. And, like it wasn't the greatest of music at the time either. So we're in, Sandy, Utah and just blasting this shit and trying to figure it out, really. I mean, that's insane that we came this far from that,
Listeners, he's underselling his hip hop. Granted, yes, it's years ago and where you've grown in terms of like your career and professionalism and whatnot. Tommy was popping back in 2013, 14, and he can go in and mix with the talent, and then I guess the personality and the drive is like what really clicked for me. I'm like, this dude's bringing something special to the table, and that was something that I specifically noticed back that many years ago. Obviously, a friendship built out of that kind of business performing relationship. We played a number of shows. I mean, you were the one facilitating everything and getting on the bill and pushing tickets. There was Spo's, there was Shwazy, Mod's Son, I Am Sue,
Ray Shremmerd?
Ray Shremmerd, and Kyle.
Was there more?
Those, when I was writing notes, those are the only ones I could remember, but I feel like there was at least 2 or 3 more. Does any more ring?
Maybe were we doing the Waka Flocka thing?
We were going to, and then you cancel.
And then we just did the frattest thing in the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Parker gives me too much credit about the music. It was a fun time, but the best thing about it was hustling with you and pushing those tickets. And that's really like where everything that I've got going on today kind of full circle comes back to. I mean, the strategies that we were doing and when we were trying to figure it out and thinking about it, the way that we were hustling tickets was just, it's comical. We were just
driving
kids
across the valley, going from this place to
delivering,
this place,
hand delivering, just for the opportunity to be able to say we're opening for these people, and I think we had a different understanding of the internet at the time, and I saw the value in being associated with these people if this is the direction that I'm going to take my personal brand one day, right? And so we would oftentimes lose money delivering those tickets.
Yeah.
We just included it for free. And we just wanted it to be a good show and a fun time for everybody that was going to come. So it was like, hey, let's sell this thing out, and we'll bring you a ticket if that's what it takes.
It will, I mean, I will sell you one $15 ticket and I will drive 35 minutes across the valley to go do that.
And we will do that 300 times to make sure that this 600,000 person room sells out, and we might break even, we might not, just with the gas fees and everything else, but it's going to be a damn good show and a really fun time.
I feel like the topic of like opportunity cost there, broadly speaking, we could dive into that a lot just in the world of events. And, as a former performer, obviously, we were a lot younger and still figuring things out at the time, but it was and still is something to say, like, I played at this venue and we played at this venue and we opened for these artists. That I think comes with a lot of components that you may not see, or a lot of return that you may not see immediately. And the sacrifice of running around all over and pushing these tickets and not even getting a cut. Like, you could dive into that. Anyways, I'm rambling now. Tommy, I'm curious, before we go on and walk through more of your story and our friendship, you are clearly an entrepreneur and a hustler from an incredibly young age. And if I were to take a stab at it, I would say that you probably sold anywhere from 50 to like 70% of the tickets for all these
Yeah,
shows.
absolutely.
Where did that entrepreneurial type spirit come from in your life? Was that influence from your parents? What were you doing before I met you? Because I think the way in which you think and work and communicate is incredibly unique now, let alone 9 years ago.
Right.
Is my question making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it stems from a lot of things. Obviously, your experience when you're growing up plays into a lot of that. The majority of that comes from my experience of moving around, right? I'm not from technically anywhere. I've lived here for a long time, moved out rather quickly after, school and whatnot, but got the luxury of traveling around when I was a kid and seeing everywhere. I've been to every state and just I've lived in 15 states. Right?
Really?
Yeah, I've lived in 15
That's where
states
it's at.
and watched
Wow.
some family members grow businesses from nothing and make it out of circumstances that are just, to be honest, terrible. My family's roots are from Detroit, Michigan, and there's a lot of poverty there, and they weren't ever, they were lucky to be in the middle class there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And having my folks recognize that that's not where they want to raise a family was the best thing that's ever happened to me because, we got to experience all of these things, and then I got to grow up, oldest child, watching my dad and my mom's brother say, let's figure this out, let's get out of this place and make our lives better, and I just traveled around and was exposed to that forever, right? And then watching it just made me realize that I loved it and I wanted to do something of similar capacity one day. And just developed this like hustler mindset. Like,
Was there any other motivations around that time frame when you became maybe more self-aware? I imagine you weren't having as explicit or direct conversations with your parents on this topic. Was there any other motivations at the time?
Yeah.
In terms of just being an artist and an entrepreneur and really like pushing yourself out of the comfort zone or doing things that were so abnormal for someone at that age?
Yeah, there's a lot, right? And so the experiencing and looking at things and experiencing things that like not a lot of people get to experience certainly helped because I was like, I want that. I want to be able to do that. Like I have gone on a private jet like 10 times in my life and my folks and my family and the people that I was with, we can't afford to do that. That's insane. Like most people don't go on a private jet, right? But like, and I don't want a private jet. This is just a good example,
No,
right? But like,
I hear you.
I got to go for free every single time, and that was me saying I want to be, in a space where if I want to do that, then I can do that.
Gotcha.
That was the biggest thing because I got to see the best of both worlds. We went from, I lived in Michigan for a long time. We went from like shitty Michigan to luxury private jets, and it's just like and again we didn't pay for that, but it's just like wow, I know what the middle looks like and I don't want the middle. I want to be able to make decisions whenever I want, however I want, and in order to do that you got to work hard.
Gotcha.
You got to like that was the motivation,
The desire for flexibility and a greater pool of options, if you will.
yeah, exactly.
Generally speaking,
much more flexible and more in control. I saw a lot of people do the traditional route and just like live off of salaries and work their way up the corporate ladder. And I think that's fine. I think it's a great route if that works for you. But with the way that my mind works, it's just, I was, from a very young age saying that's just not going to work. That doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean?
I know exactly. You just brought back a deep memory. I remember when I worked at Cafe Rio?
Yeah.
I remember my first couple months working there, I was taking a catering order just to go drop off at an office. And I had to have been 16, maybe 17. And I remember pushing my cart, wearing my apron and my hat. And I remember being in this like really dim lit office looking at all these like cubicles. I was like, that does not look like something I ever want to do with my life. I want I want to have so much more meaning and fulfillment and joy. And again, I want to jump back to your point you made in which, a 9 to 5, whatever the job or the line of work may be, like that may be amazing for that person. That may be perfect, what works well. I'm not talking down on it, but I recognize in that moment, literally thinking, I'm not going to let myself do that because I want more, and I know that I'm capable of working towards that or creating that or building that.
Totally. Yeah. And it is important for a lot of people. There's people on our payroll that do that. They come in from 10 to 5 every day,
and they're happy.
It works really well for them.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you're going to do something like that, I think you got to find a group of people that allow you to focus on, what you're truly talented and intrinsically motivated by, and apply that to your work however you can. If you find that and you have this 9 to 5 and that works for you, that's incredible, right? But if you're doing this like mundane shit that like you see in the movies, it's like, that's, I can't do it, you know? Like, and I've had those 9 to 5s where, like, wow, I'm surrounded by this hustler culture. Like I've had one, I should say. I've had one real job. And I was like, but I'm surrounded by this group of people that think the way I think, and we're hustling, and like, it's like that. Like this, I'm motivated by this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not to say that I've figured it out myself for the entirety of my career. You know what I mean?
I do. The way the lens I see that through is like a building phase, if you will.
Yeah.
A building phase. I want to move on just for the sake of time and sharing all that we still have to talk about. Obviously, Tommy, you've carried that drive and that desire for building and creating more and opening opportunities since we stopped playing shows. We started in 13, 14, 15, maybe 16. 16, yeah.
16 or 17 we ended,
About 16 or 17.
Yeah. Which
and
is
then
funny, not
you
long ago.
transition into the DJ
You're
entertainment
right,
business.
16 for sure.
16. Do you want to take just a brief minute and introduce the DJ company?
Yeah.
Or what you did there?
Absolutely. So, essentially just a one-stop shop for event services, right? So we built this up with a great group of people, and we offer DJ services to events, corporate events, birthdays, weddings, parties, everything. Lots of weddings because we're in Utah at the time, and expanded that and added different lanes of revenue by adding photo booth services
and photography
and videography as well.
Yep.
Slowed down on that, kind of white label it later on, but the bulk of it was the DJs and the photo booths. So it was super fun to do that. Did it for about 5 years before letting go of it. It was just
5 years. Wow.
4 or 5 years. Yeah, it was a hustle in my mind. It's easy. It's an easy line of work, or it was at the time, right? To offer what we were offering, because it wasn't premium, like what you're doing and things like that. It's just a easy way to start making some, not passive income, but money that you're in control of. And it started out with just me, and we grew it over the course of the 5 years. And
how many events would you do on one night? Like roughly speaking, like could you do?
I mean, we did. There had to be 8 one night. It had to be max. Yeah. So we do like by the end of it, we were doing 300 a year.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is a lot of delegation, fine details, to
logistics.
Manage. And again, you had mentioned kind of like different styles of DJing or different services and delivering at different levels. Even that though, like where you were at, dude, I remember when you had told me your starting price and thinking like, wow, that's like a lot. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
My value's not there. And so to consider tripling the amount of events I would do in a year at that time frame is too much to consider managing. Oh man, I remember that conversation exactly where we were at in my house, in my garage. Anyways, I'm rambling. I want to bring it back in. Almost 5 years of building a very successful company. I remember reflecting back, or even during the time, like seeing the growth that you had made happen in like a year or 2 years, and then comparing that to like my DJing.
Yeah.
Whereas I've been DJing a little, year or two longer or whatever. I'm just like, how are you doing it? That goes back to my point in that you're insane when it comes to business and executing. I digress. I'm rambling. Tommy, talk to me about the transition from the mobile entertainment event service to then the next chapter.
Yeah, so that was a good thing to do while we were in college, right? That was my whole goal. I was like, I'm done with this. It's getting me through school. It's paying me rather well. I'm making more than I would if I just went and worked any other college kid job. I like this. It's fun. It's allowing me to get the experience that I'm looking for. And when I graduated from school, I knew that it was time to move on. It took a lot of time to figure out what that was going to be. I knew I wanted to go work for a startup and didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. So it took a year to figure out. So I ran the company for a year, had no school. It was nice, man. It was like a big vacation. It was so fun. Like
I got to talk to my boss.
The company, the company at that point was like on autopilot, and I didn't have school. So it was the first time I just got to like chill for a minute, and just figure stuff out and sit down mentally and say, what do I want to do? Like, what's the next chapter look like? It's got to be a right and strategic move. And that's how I ended up with a startup in travel and events, right? And a lot of people that are working with me today are people that I met working there. So it's fun to be full circle. But that was a very necessary transition and chapter in my life to understand how to go from a six-figure business to an environment that encourages you to be thinking about 7 or 8 figures, right? I would have never learned what I've learned as far as business goes if I didn't really just get this job and take it so seriously, even though I probably took a pretty large pay cut when I started working there and stopped focusing on the business.
Gotcha.
But I still had the business money coming in, so it didn't matter.
Gotcha.
This
may be taking a step back, but do you feel like your experience in building a very successful entertainment event service company was almost in a way like prepping you for that next step in the travel booking industry? I kind of butchered that.
I think I get what you're saying. Yeah, it was necessary because I'm getting thrown into a different ball game. You go to a company and you get hired, and so I'm a sales agent there, right? And it's like we don't know what we're doing, but we just raised $500 million, so we've got enough money to try to figure this out. And so with that kind of attitude going on and a lot of startups are like that, right? It's like we just raised X amount. We don't know what we're doing, but we're going to figure this out.
What's the next step?
Right?
Yeah.
And so taking the entrepreneurial mindset and everything that I figured out with the event company and applying that to my new role within this startup really allowed me to excel in the role compared to others, because when we started, there was like 4 of us, but allowed me to continuously be like a top salesperson and move on up in the company rather quickly, right? So very necessary and very advantageous
there we go.
to have that experience and go into this next chapter, right? And then while hustling and applying that knowledge, it's also, all right, like, what else is going on outside of my departments? Like, network with as many people as I can. Like, I want to understand. Like, I can't, at the time, I can't make $1 million business. I don't have the knowledge. So what do you do other than just asking like your title, going up to people, like, what do you really do? Like you tell me your title, but like, what does that look like? Like, what tasks do you do? Like, I want to really understand every aspect of how this works. You know what I mean?
Yes. The way in which you're describing it now, and I think I knew this, even though we were separated from distance and talk over the phone every now and then. You were taking it like 3 steps ahead of maybe the average person that may be in that role, and really seeking to learn more about the industry and the roles to then leverage yourself and the next chapter to be even more successful, to be able to know the ins and outs, to be able to take what you're doing over here and then create something new and make it even larger.
Exactly. How can I gain the experience here and apply this to the bigger plans that I have?
You're actively seeking to do that.
Yeah. From day one.
Yeah.
From day one. I knew that this wasn't the job for me. I knew I'm not a job guy. I'm not a job guy, so, and I knew that going into it, but sometimes you got to do that and just gain experience. And then once it clicks, you get it, because, you can only read so much about something. You can't really start a business in an industry that you know absolutely nothing about just by reading about it. I'm a kind of learner where I've got to talk to people about it. I've got to be around it. I've got to immerse myself in it. I've got to see it. And then I'll fully understand it with the combination of reading about it and studying it, right?
I find it funny the way you describe that because you're very much a people person as well, and you have been since I've known you.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the combination of how you choose to go into it. I'm speaking very broadly right now, but also then pairing your skills as a communicator and as a salesperson and as a very educated person in this industry makes for what I believe a very great combination. So, Tommy, let's transition on to this next step, right? Kind of where you're at now in your life, and as a business owner and a very successful entrepreneur. Can you share a little bit more about what you're doing right now? Maybe a little context for the listeners to kind of connect some dots.
Yeah, absolutely. So, after that, or during the travel escapade, is that the right word for that? Escapade?
I don't know.
During
what
the
that word
travel
means.
and during the travel and experience period of my life where I was working there, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so I was gaining a lot of knowledge, gaining a lot of experience, and COVID ruined everything in that industry, obviously. And I stuck around for a little while trying to navigate and figure it out in this new world. And I just kind of saw it as an opportunity to get out. Like I was like, I'm never going to, I would have always wanted to. It's funny, when I was a kid, I would say my dream job is selling private jets. I've always wanted to like sell something that's a ton of money or sell to like businesses, but not anything boring. Like
when you were
like
a young
software.
kid.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, that was my dream job. I wanted to sell private jets.
Okay.
Like that sounded like the coolest job in the world to me, right? So that at that moment, it made me realize, all right, I'm selling to customers, right? And I don't want to be in B2C. I want to sell business to business, or I want to sell something high end, and it's a hard thing to do unless you get into something like software sales or things like that. And I decided to transition. So started looking around on the internet at new companies, things like that. Simultaneously took another job with a marketing agency, and realized that period when COVID hit was the perfect time to transition into digital media, and that the world doesn't quite have a full understanding of what digital media is. It's a very much so an industry that is hard to navigate, and there are only a couple of generations that really truly understand the power of it and how to feed and filter through the noise.
Use the channels
Exactly.
to be as efficient as possible. So I think we're doing a great job in terms of providing some context. Talk a little bit more about digital media and what your
Yeah, we can get into that.
Yeah, please, a little bit more. Share a little more.
So, digital media, you're thinking about everything, right? But what people don't realize or often think about is how channels, content creators, and everybody on the internet is using those platforms and why they're using them, right? At the end of the day, it's monetization. And that's something that I understand really well, I believe, right? And so that's what our company does. We come in and we partner with content creators, influencers, and celebrities, and we say, you've got this channel, you're posting great content, your audience loves you, and you know how to engage with them, and we know that you love your audience, but I don't think you know how to monetize it quite as well as us. So let us help out with that.
And what does monetizing mean? Just
It's beyond, you start a YouTube video, you either pay for premium or the advertisement comes up and it's a commercial that somebody else shot, right? That's the simplest way to make money.
Gotcha.
But there's other things that you can do if you get creative and know the right amount of people and know how to do it and know how to negotiate,
Can
right?
you give me and the listeners an example
Yeah.
of how you would approach a project or a client or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So if you go to djalive.com right now and take 20% off, then
Bringingtheenergy.com.
Yeah, you go to bringingtheenergy.com right now. You use code TommyB. You're going to get 20% off of what your next guest appearance or your next Parker booking to come speak at your conference, right? Like you can bake that in to the episode, and that's evergreen and that lives there. And somebody's got to go sell that advertising space or negotiate that. In the buyers don't necessarily even sometimes know how that works or what that looks like, right?
Gotcha.
So that's so like we're always thinking about how can you monetize beyond the traditional ways, and that's what our business does. We're all about monetizing your content. Let you focus on creating it
Yep.
and engaging with your audience.
Yep.
We'll help you monetize.
Yep.
That's the whole shtick.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And do you feel like this line of not monetization? You put it, or used another word earlier. It's slipping my mind. Do you feel like this line of work is fairly new, if you will? Because you had mentioned that there's only a few or a small percentage of people today that understand, the power of media. Do you feel like it's a fairly new industry, if you will,
Yeah.
that's being tapped into and beginning to like get to the roots?
It's not. We're on the beginning of it, and I don't want to be one of those marketing guru guys that say like Web3 is going to change everything. But I honestly think that like we're on the very beginning of it, right?
Gotcha.
It's been the same. It's been stagnant forever. I think COVID. I think I'm navigating and looking at and utilizing an entirely different internet because of COVID. Do you feel that way?
Oh yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's new as of late 2020, because early 2020 we're figuring out what the hell is going on with the world. But late 2020 we're transitioning, and then even like 2021 we're just like, all right, we're getting used to this, right? So like it's so new, and it's just the beginning, and not everybody has it figured out. There's no concrete way to make money or navigate through this, but Web3 is going to be coming, and AI and like all like deep learning is going to change all of this, and like somebody's going to really, people are going to make trillions of dollars in this.
Do you ever get freaked out by technology like exponentially increasing?
Yeah, every day.
Its capabilities.
Every day. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Sorry, those are some like nightmare type things.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think this is a great way to, I guess, continue the conversation. We're kind of in the beginning of this new era, if you will, and we're just barely beginning to tap into utilizing this way of communicating digital media and reaching followings, clients, just people in general. Talk to me about what you've got in store personally for the next couple of years, 5, 10 years. If I remember correct, it's kind of phasing a little bit out of this industry and doing something different. What's the next step for Tommy B?
So we've got a lot going on. Going on in the as far as plans going down. I'm a big planner, and it's something I often think about, right? So in the immediate future, we are going to continue to grow the monetization aspect of the business. We're going through a acquisition that should be done by the end of the year, right? We are trying to get our hands wet in producing content, because right now we're reliant on content creators. So we've got a lot of cool shows that we're trying to make, and we have script writers and a handful of talented creators that are creating new series.
So I just want to interject real quick. Kind of like how Netflix has Netflix originals.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay,
so
awesome.
We'll have some originals.
Gotcha.
We're working with a lot of cool people, a lot of cool influencers and celebrities with the company that's acquiring us to create new shows and and just see what we can do as far as production goes. So that's really cool. I think I would like to stay on with the companies that I've built even after the acquisition goes through. For the next few years, I'd like to see what happens and see if we can turn this into something bigger and continue to be a valuable partner for the company that is acquiring us, because they have so much going on, and I think they have a good plan on how to become a competitor to Disney as far as media goes. They have their, and so I want to be involved in that and go beyond the verticals that we understand. I think I'll be with them for 3 to 5 years for sure. And then my plan is I'll be 30 by then, in 5 years, which is going to be crazy. I would like to ideally transition next into a investor/teacher role.
That's right.
I love to teach.
I remember talking to you about this at like 1 a.m. in January.
Yeah. No, I love it. So I taught as a guest a few times at the college, and in the entrepreneurship department, and I loved it. I did it for like 2 years. I would come in all the time. I loved it. It was amazing. So I want to get into that, but I want to take the passion and love for that and apply it to investing in people who are going through what I'm going through right now, which is I don't have that person in my life right now to say, can I bounce this business idea off of you because I'm scared about gambling this or investing this 50,000 in this vertical? What is your opinion? Or like I don't have that right now. So I think there's a lot of people out there that need it. I think there's a lot of people like me who have successful companies, might do 7 figures in a year as far as revenue goes, but don't quite know how to turn that into 8 figures yet. And being a part of a business and being able to provide a little bit of guidance at the same time just sounds so thrilling to me. I'm trying to get into it right now, but I don't even know where to start.
Oh, dang it. That was going to be my next question for you.
Yeah.
What are you either thinking about or actively doing to really make that next step?
It starts.
Well, my next question was, what would you recommend or suggest to that entrepreneur that's trying to go from this high level to the next step? That was my next question for you.
I know, and it makes sense. And I don't know, right? Because I'm trying to figure it out. I want to become an investor. I want to invest in companies. It's not a matter of calling your friends and saying, hey, you should start a business, or anything. Because I got plenty of friends who have businesses that I just frankly wouldn't invest in, right? I think it's a matter of stacking cash, making sound investments with your portfolio, in whatever angle you're in. If you're, I'm in everything. I'm in the stock market and like crypto and everything, right?
You in NFTs?
I want to be.
Sorry, I'm joking. Please.
No. But I think it's a matter of managing that properly so that you're not losing money and saving as much as you can, so that while you're out there networking, when the right opportunity comes, you have the ability
resources
to have a lot of liquid cash to be able to invest for a percentage of ownership, right?
Gotcha.
Because not a lot of people have that. Not a lot of people will say, here's $50,000 for 10% of your company. That's not. So I think just having it accessible and networking is the first step. But I don't know. We'll see in 6 months if this is actually how that starts. I don't know how you become an investor. I think that's all it is, but I don't know,
That 3 to 5 year time frame, I think, is going to be a little bit shorter, if you ask me, Tommy.
I would love it to be, but that's a good side thing because I am very, very involved in growing the company that's acquiring us.
Yes,
I want to see that huge, but yeah, that's ideal for me, and that would allow me to not necessarily focus on one business, but focus on my investments, which is fun because it's checking in with people that you care about and teaching them in a sense, and it would allow me to focus on what I care about in my personal life as well.
Yeah.
It's because
that much more fulfilling.
Right. And it's just not you're not tied down to one business that doesn't control, because right now I literally live in the office.
Yeah.
It's not an exaggeration. I live in the building where 10 people come work every single day. And that's not sustainable forever. You know what I mean? So, doing that and taking that route and becoming this investor and this person and checking in with people allows you to kind of have your hands wet everywhere,
Tommy, forgive me for kind of redirecting or changing the topic, if you will. One thing that I'm noticing and have noticed literally since the day I met you, how almost intense or passionate or direct you are when you speak, when you talk about something like entrepreneurship, business, your business. Are you picking up on it right now, Nick? Yeah, Jonathan? Yeah, you might hear, if you're listening or watching, that's something that I just noticed about you, and I think it's awesome. It reminds me of Ethan Cisneros from Thirst. Gets so intense and passionate and excited about it. Again, I apologize for redirecting the conversation, Tommy, but I've noticed that about you, and I'm just seeing it right now in front of me. We are about wrapping up on time, but I failed to bring up something that I think I should have brought up at the very beginning of this podcast, and that's that you and Nick were the two that encouraged me to start this.
Yeah, we needed it. We needed the energy. We absolutely needed the energy. I'm so glad you did. It's, because I watch every episode. My favorite podcast, actually. And I'm actually I know
This is a
everything that you've
joke.
got a lot going on, and I'm proud of everything that you've got going on. And I think, like I said, that the internet is a different place, and if you keep this up, it's very necessary to your brand, right? And it's just amazing. And I think if you like, incredible things are going to come out of this. I'm so glad you did this. Like I've told you a lot of, I've told you, I've given you a lot of unsolicited advice in our 10-year friendship.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that out of everything that I've ever told you, was one that you actually like took seriously and pursued, because the world needs this.
Yeah.
For real.
And I know you're being serious. For the listeners, he hasn't listened to more than one episode, and this is episode 35. And him and Nick Nord, the man behind the camera, doing all the producing and the sound, the back end, were the two that convinced me to do this podcast, this show. I had entertained the idea for about 2 years. And one night when you were in town at the huddle, you two aggressively
Stomping
convinced
grounds.
me to do this show. And alas, here we are. I wanted to bring that up because, this wouldn't be happening if it weren't for you and Nick. I'm curious. I got one more question for you, and then I kind of want to open it up and wrap it up. I think I hear you on a broad level as to why you think that, I should have started this. Can you help me understand a little bit more, like, your thought process there?
Yeah. With the goal,
I'm curious.
The goals that you were describing to me and what you want to get into in content, this is a very low barrier of entry, vertical to explore, right? It doesn't take all that much work. It's just showing up and doing it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a first step. And then getting that content and being consistent with it is very important. And this is part of that. It's just part of the overall strategy, right? So that was my number one thinking, and my second thought was your personality and your thoughts and your mindset is unlike most people, and we have a very unique experience in entrepreneurship and business, and people need to hear that. When we were building these things, we were just kids trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And
I remember when you gave me your business card for the first time.
I know, and what's so important for anybody listening and anybody getting value out of this is the message that I know you send, which is if you work hard, if you stay positive, if you network, and if you just try, you can do this too. We were kids when we figured this out. You know what I mean? And whatever interests you, you're interested in DJing, I'm interested in digital media. Like, it's just like, if you're very interested in it, you're passionate about it, and you do it, or you just try, like, you can do this. Nothing's stopping you. And I think that's such an important message that you're sending out into the world, and that your guests, I haven't watched, but that your guests, because I know their names, often put out. Like, people think that this is to start or to get to a place where you own a business. It's some calculated, like, crazy intense 6 months where you're sitting down and writing out every move. But I think a lot of people get value in hearing, no, just go try. Mm-hmm. Like, we had no clue what we were doing when we started this. Mm-hmm. And you can do it too. Mm-hmm. Anybody can do it. Mm-hmm. And I had this conversation with one of my best friends in Nashville, and it was 5 years ago. You've met him, Jamin. And he said to me and Colton, I think you might have been in the car with us, I don't know how you guys do it. I'll never own a business. This is crazy. I don't know how you guys have done this. And I said exactly that. And Jamin just called me last week and said his business, he started 4 months ago, has already done $80,000. And I'm just like, dude, like, I told you, like, and it's in tech. It's just like, anybody can do this. And it's not a matter of, it's just a matter of trying and having a good attitude. And that is the definition of you and your brand. So that's why I wanted you to do this so bad.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah.
I know there's a mic and a camera, but, like, thank you, bro. And I'm sure had I sat down with, like, a piece of paper and reflected, like, I could have pieced some of that together, but, like,
there's a lot of planning.
You and I know each other quite well, and in a way, like, I do feel like we kind of did have a grasp on that back when we were figuring things out and just trying. I think there's a lot of value there, and quite frankly, like, my aim for this podcast is very similar to what you're describing, in that I love entrepreneurship, I love DJing, and it's a very unique line of work, and I've come to not only have some very amazing, crazy, wild, fun, eye-opening experiences, but also meet some amazing people like yourself 9, 10 years ago via Twitter.
Right.
And I want to share the stories and learning lessons of some of those amazing people in my life, and a little bit about myself and my experiences as a DJ and an entrepreneur and in the entertainment event industry. This is kind of crazy, bro. Thinking back to just the OG days, man. Tommy, my man, I'm curious. I got maybe 2 more minutes left.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to share, or perhaps maybe even a fun memory, or
I think so.
something that comes
We
to
can come
mind?
up with something. I don't know about a memory. It'll take me 15 minutes because we've got so many and we go crazy every time I see you. But I do want you to come on our podcast. It's going to be launching.
Yes. Yeah. The name of the show?
It's Politically Correct with Rupp and Tommy.
and
It's coming
Tommy.
out in a few weeks, so be on the lookout for that. I think
Thank
your audience gets a lot of value from the content that you're putting out, and I think there's going to be a lot of synergy, even though ours is a lot more, I don't want to say raunchy, but...
Hey, I'll actually listen to it.
Yeah, please do. I want you to come on. We've got some cool things lined up, and I'm just super, super glad that you had me on the show. I'm so grateful to have you as a friend, and I love that you're doing this. I can't stress it enough. I think the world needs it. Put it all out there, and I'm so excited to see Parker all over TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and like every single channel that I explore, and just I know that this lane of you getting into the content creation game is going to go so far, and that the world needs it. I really can't stress it enough. I love it.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah, we brought the energy.
We went behind the energy
To bring
as we're bringing it.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I'm in front of the energy now.
There it is. Tommy, so the show, do you have a release date?
No,
On
not
Politically
yet.
Correct?
Early April. It's coming out early April.
Early
We'll
April.
just say that. Yeah.
Is there anywhere that we can, listeners, viewers can...
All streaming platforms. It's going to be all over Instagram. It's
Okay.
going to be all over TikTok. We've got a full-on production team, like handling the editing and clipping and social media distribution. It's going to be on YouTube. It's probably going to be on Facebook and Twitter even. So anywhere that you consume content,
MySpace?
is that a thing?
I'm joking.
Wait, is it?
I'm joking. I don't think so.
I'm making one
joking.
as soon as I leave this room.
I'm joking.
Yeah. It's going to be on MySpace, so you can watch it there.
There we go.
Yeah. You can tell your mom to listen to it on her Alexa while she's, doing shit around the house. It's going to be everywhere. So I'm excited for it. I hope that you get to fly out to Hollywood and get on the show.
I'm genuinely intrigued, a little nervous to listen, but I'm sure it's going to be entertaining.
It's going to be fun. It's a lot like this. We got a lot of cool people that are doing content creation like you in various verticals. A lot of musicians, a lot of rappers.
Mm-hmm.
We just had a guy on who's a big TikToker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be cool. And I hope that as funny and goofy and silly as we are on it, that people get a lot of value out of it in terms of business, like they do on your show. So we'll see.
Entertainment value, and then in like an educational value as well.
Yeah.
I try to
Hopefully.
have like a good balance of that too, in having natural but also intentional conversations. I think we check those boxes. Hopefully, if not, then hopefully we see you for next episode next week. Tommy, I love you. You're crazy. I look up to you, man. You've been an inspiration. Politically Correct coming out on all podcast platforms. I'm gonna subscribe. That's the end of the show.
Now we're going to kiss.
We're not gonna kiss. That's the end of the show. Tommy freaking B. Tommy Bronkowski. What's the name of the podcast?
Politically Correct with Rupp and Tommy.
Okay, and the name of this podcast.
Behind the Energy.
There we
With
go.
Parker and Tommy.
Behind the Energy
brought
podcast,
it.
ladies and gentlemen. I'll catch you next week for episode 36. Peace.